Hi, hello everyone, and welcome to the fourth keynote lecture of the Public Space Academy. This is Luisa Bravo, the founder and director of the Academy. It's such a pleasure to be here today with all of you for this another hour of amazing discussions in regard of public space challenges. With me, we have Via and Egle, who are part of the Public Space Academy team. Hello.
Hi, hello everybody.
Hello everyone.
As you probably know, we are working hard to promote the Public Space Academy through our social media and newsletters. We have launched the online program of the Academy in January that you can find on our platform, publicspaceacademy.org. And we are now implementing these monthly lectures with key scholars, practitioners, activists from different parts of the world who have developed significant and highly impactful projects related to public space. So I'm happy to introduce today, as I said, the fourth keynote lecturer, who is Insaf Ben Othmane Hamrouni, a distinguished architect-urbanist and development strategist. She's also an entrepreneur with a footprint in the Republic of Ireland, Tunisia, and Egypt. Her work revolves around sparking transformative change, utilizing innovative projects that intersect architecture and design to sculpt impactful possibilities. She's a fervent advocate for sustainable method in teaching, learning, and the hands-on practice of architecture. She is also the co-founder of Œcumene Studio, a non-profit dedicated to curating sustainable and dignified living spaces for communities spanning the MENA and the Africa regions. So welcome, Insaf, to our Public Space Academy Keynote Lecture Series. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you very much, Luisa. It's really nice to be with you today and to be able, to share also ideas and reflection related to public space. Thanks for everyone who is joining us today, and I'm looking forward, for a substantial, discussion all together.
Yes, in fact, Insaf will give the lecture, and then we will have around 15 minutes at the end to answer to all your questions. So please write your questions. If you are following from LinkedIn and YouTube, we will be able to include your question in the last part of this lecture. So now I will give you the floor, Insaf.
Thank you very much, Luisa. I hope that everyone is hearing. It's my first time on StreamYard. It's great to be with you all. I thank again Luisa for this opportunity and the fact to be together during this moment of discussion and dialogue with each other. So today I was, thinking about what kind of subject we can talk about and what kind of, points we need to highlight. And I thought that is very important, to share with you some reflections that has been, going on the recent decades in the Arab world in particular, especially related to the public realm. And of course, here, as you can see from my screen, I have been just putting different, let's say, terminologies and expression public realm, public, like with a Q, public opinion, practice of space, and of course, space agency, which is something that most of, the architects and placemakers today prefer to use this terminology, acknowledging a little bit that there is a shift that is needed in terms of, the way how we look, understand, and also aim to design our living spaces. So Œcumene Spaces for Dignity, as already highlighted by Louisa, it's a participatory design collective. It is dedicated to addressing urban challenges in the so-called Middle East, Africa, and the MENA region. We are a team of interdisciplinary, professionals and also inhabitants that have been in a certain way engaged into very critical reflection about the way how our urban environment is shaped, and of course our habitat. And of course, we have been also challenging our personal and collective memories, and in particular using tools that are not, we are not used to, like empathy as a tool for design in reality, and looking for resilience within our community. So our hub, of course, it's we are present in different countries, and this is because we are a network of task force. We are Tunisian, Egyptian, Syrian, Lebanese, Palestinian, Jordanian, and Ugandan, leaders. And we have been really actively working now for 10 years. Why I'm highlighting this? Because we are now in the matter of really digging deep in the different project initiatives we have been initiating and also participating with our local partners. And we are in the moment where we have this need to reflect on what kind of knowledge are we using, what kind of lenses we are looking through, if we are really kind of acknowledging the transformations that are happening in our territories today, and if it's really effective the way that we are undergoing our mission. So of course, when we talk about the public space, and I will not go in this lecture to define, what public space or not, or to argue about it, even though it's something that is really important. I'm from the let's say, the generation that believes that words are so important, especially the fact that, of course, these doctrines has been, of course, developed, thought of in a particular language, and have been, of course, adapted and used in contexts where people are, of course, use different languages to think and to practice their work. So, of course, the reality that we are talking about today and the different approaches will be kind of cross-cutting different aspects. It means that we will be going into public realm, public opinion, practice of space, space agency. And this is, of course, we will be able to dig more during the discussion to kind of, I would be able to answer your questions and see, okay, what I was meaning in that, type of kind of, projected reflection for myself. So, of course, when we start for today, this webinar, the first of thing, what I thought is really important is about already situate ourselves where we are, in which context are we talking about this social contracts and about these narratives, what geography are we really attached to, and which kind of imaginary of these geographies we are, both of us today, are we thinking about, because this is all where the challenge is really is. And of course, why does it matter? Why does it matter today that I thought it's really important, instead of talking about, all right, our co-production projects, our participatory design approaches, about, the need to have, sustainable, inclusive public spaces and so on. Why does it matter to talk, really to specify and to choose and to pick some words that are still today an open-ended questions, the Arab world, the MENA world, and of course, talking about, co-production of public, let's say, space. So of course, this means that we are really in a let's say framework of a historical or legacy of modes of reasoning. There is a reason that we are now trying to have a dialogue, to reestablish a dialogue about it. It's about the fact that especially within this academy, it's about not only providing best practices or knowledge or ideas, but also to try to develop a sense of critical thinking from professionals and from providers and from also beneficiaries on the way how we can think about these concepts that are today also reshaping our way of living and are reshaping our way of thinking. So this ongoing inquiry that we are in the middle of it has been, of course, motivating me to divide this presentation in two parts. One where I just basically project some kind of key pillars, key milestones, and a part two where we can, of course, collectively together go deeper into different parts if we think it matters. So when we talk about publicly realm and social contract in the Arab world, here we are completely positioning, and we take for granted straight away that we have a duality between an Eastern and a Western thought. So this duality, in reality, just to show you the perspective, especially us as placemaker, that is all based on a kind of a series of legacy and shift and transformation on the way how we also look to the spatial orientation of the word. Most of you would, of course, use the word of southern countries and about developing countries and all this terminology that kind of contain a certain population or a certain nation within a certain channel of perspective. I like this maps because when we have started in reality in our reflection and working on in these areas and these geographies, the question that we've asked, what kind of compass are we using and what kind of map shall we have to use? And this was a kind of a declic, because here, as you can see on the right side, there is, of course, the compass that is used by, the Arab, let's say, geographers and sailor and, of course, scientists, in the way that we have the south on the top and the north on the bottom. The same on the left, we have the map of the world, which is one of my favorite ones of Idrisi, where we can actually have several versions of this map showing a kind of, another way of territorialization, another way of already projecting realities of this world. And as you can see, of course, this map, which have been used, completely shifted afterwards, like rotated, to be able to see, of course, that we have the Europe on the bottom and the Middle East on the top. This, of course, I compare it to the other map of the European in the Middle Age, where actually this is for them the way how they see the world. So they see in the petal, aspect where we actually reduce between Europa, Asia, and Africa, and this kind of let's say projected imaginary on the way, of course, of how we perceive the world and how it's shaped. So one of the things that we need really to understand when we work and we think in these territories where I'm come from and where I practice, my profession on a daily basis, is that it has a huge relationship between different eras that are marked by a huge, conflict, a huge transformation, very rapid one, which I basically will describe as a violent, transitions that didn't come and didn't left actually the communities to take a breath and to be able to go into this reasoning process that I was talking about earlier, and especially within the space and the way how we interact and how we can really occupy and build up our social, structures and our social realm, which is one of the key capital when we talk about the public, of course, realm. So this, of course, this period have been many of course, the thinkers have called it as a period of hatred and despair, and it keeps this traces all along until today, when we find out that after the let's say the Ottoman Empire, it gets or left the place for a huge wave of European colonization, and when it's reached its peak. Today, the way how our urban territories and our, let's say, geographies have been completely shaped, based on these let's say violent events that they took place. It's a lot of people would think that there have been a rupture, which in reality were in a continuity of a several, let's say, layering of legacies. And why I'm really dragging the attention that we need to think about these legacies in the way how we will be completely engaging with, the new paradigm of planning, a new paradigm of spatial agencies. Because if we wanted really to succeed the engineering of participation, and we wanted really to reach this common universal goals of having inclusivity, having places for all, having a kind of empowering communities, we cannot ignore that, because this is one of the root causes of why some or much of the action that are taking place are kind of very limited on time and not really effective on the long run. So of course, these layers that I'm talking about, it's about the past, the present, and of course about the questioning what kind of vision and what kind of imaginary have been really, brought up by, the Arab world. And when I say the Arab world, it's very simple, because we are contained in it. It's a huge diversity of countries, of territories, of ethnicities, of people, of languages. And this is one of the things that also we wanted to discuss later, and that we really need to actually overcome that, and started looking at this diversity and trying to build up a framework through which we can really understand that necessity of respecting and acknowledging that each population and community needs its own vision, needs its own contextualized way, and needs time to be able to build it. So of course, the MENA, or the Arab world, this is something also very important for any kind of professional, even though they have not undergone deep studies or being really into the social science, that the MENA or the Arab are Western constructs, right? Why are we saying so? It's not a matter of saying, to pointing fingers. No, it's here to really understand that even though I was saying that there is a kind of dualities, this dualities is not by force a kind of a rupture. This duality comes as a continuity, as a kind of mirroring effect. So here today, when we're talking about, let's say the challenges, the opportunities, the benefits whatsoever, kind of, argument we are undertaking, we need to as well understand that we are in a continuity. When we are in the Western part, and we are talking about the MENA and talking about the Arab world, we are not really completely talking about something that completely dissociated or coming as an opposition, but there are some kind of friction from this mirroring impact that is a legacy of this colonization, era that didn't actually stop. So of course, this is intertwined with the fact of the othered part. So the other part is all the time have been also used a lot by professional, by academics, by, we find it in a lot of literature, in the way how we frame at the same time, taking for granted these kind of geographies without really underscoring that there is a kind of, exchange of that knowledge and a continuity within that. So of course, we have been shifting between this kind of perspective that is from the south and to the north to something that is completely coming by a kind of globalized, knowledge, let's say, wave, in a way that everybody today are having a kind of, standardization, what I call it, in the way how we look and perceive and understanding of, the public realm or any kind of paradigm of planning or design in general. This is as well push us in a way that we say in each time that we have to put some efforts in understanding what kind of narratives are we talking about, what kind of mind, way of thinking, of reasoning is it there when we intervene on the ground? What kind of, mechanism or processes of cultural constructs am I using? And this is basically is so important, because all the things that we are, when we talk about public realm, we are talking automatically about media and mediation. And when we talk about design, we talk automatically about the projection of certain images, certain, rules, certain doctrines that we adopt, and that we're trying at a certain way to contain it within that. And the fact that also from the Western part, the Orientalism is still vivid. This part, and which is really here to emphasize, is not the way how even the Western, and I will go back to it, look to, to the East. It's actually the way how us, ourselves, as being, having this legacy, have been already in a very huge friction and having been consuming these paradigms of design and these terminologies and concepts, that there is a self-inflicting Orientalism within our public realm. So of course, this perception that I'm talking about needs also to be questioned. And the work is still lots to be done in this field. It's a way how we perceive things, which kind of lenses are we using, which kind of tools, and which kind of especially science that we can verify towards it. And today it's also, we have to be responsible ourselves as being professionals and practitioners. It's what form of knowledge are we bringing into the table, and what kind of reinforcement of it, and what kind of judgment at a certain time. All of this are depicting in reality what we always actually talking about, is that it's more about dynamics. It's more about things that are not, stagnated. There are things that are completely, inviting us to re-question our top-down practice, which is still today, even though our intention is to be more into the bottom-up and more process-oriented, we are still into the top-down application of such a things, which is, for my opinion, it's just, a matter of giving attention that we need a kind of a revolution of thought, and we need to reinvent the whole paradigms. So of course, this part, which is what I'm talking about, have been, of course, taking or leaving traces of a lot of erasure, a lot of things that has been completely covered up, that we cannot really today capable of understanding the dynamic of the Arab world in itself, even though that we wanted to picture it as such or to frame it in about. And the question is also what kind of alternatives are offered for us today, which in reality, they are not so much. So of course, if we go back to the narratives, what kind of local narratives are there, and how we will be able to reshape and to be part of this formation of local narratives. That is one of the things that most of the communities that we have been working with are all the time trying to bring into the table of saying, okay, what is really our narrative? Is it something that comes in a way that have been brought or taking from the Western, let's say, paradigms, or is something that we might, or we have the possibility to reshape and to reconstruct again? So of course, these all what I have been discussing now, it's all about understanding the status quo of control that we are in today, the status quo of standardization, the status quo of that we bringing actually, without, whether intentionally or not, the doctrine of the good, and that we have, completely shaping a form of aesthetic that is beyond that. Everything else is not considered as to be taken into account, or just to be framed under other lenses of romanticization or particularly philanthropic, aspect. So what is the reality today? The reality today, when we wanted to really think and understand and practice in these territories, we need to understand that we are in a legacy of colonialism that is still undergoing, whether it's cultural, whether it's economic, whether it's positive or negative. We are basically into a kind of melancholia towards the socialism that is Arab socialism, which most of this population, most of them, the popular speech that, desire of occupying, the public realm or taking possession of it, even though that has not been a creation of our societies. We are in a context of a free market. This free market becomes also a cultural practice that you can see it and depict in every, corner of our, ecumene and habitat. We are on a reality of economic reforms that still, some of them are kind of, in a very rapid pace, completely also, changing, and I call it a tango. We are in a tango in that matter. So we are not in a status quo of stability, where in reality you can find yourself in a form of temporality. We are in a kind of entrepreneurial governance. So when we talk about the public realm, when we talk about, co-decisions, co-creation, co-production, all of this paradigm that we're talking about, it's something that if we don't have this capability of understanding that we are in a shaped, physical, very entrepreneurial, culture that has been completely strength by all these changes within these societies, we probably also facing a lot of challenges in even putting the basis of a dialogue which is needed. So of course, this is it's completely supported and backed by urban planning and urbanization of the market, which we are part of it in its creation. So just here, just to go really quickly, I wanted to share some videos just to show you here from the publicity of new cities. And of course, you can find this in everywhere in the Arab region, but I wanted just that you can take a look on this series of videos. So as you can see here, it's a new city. It's Medinti, Medinti is a real big real estate developer. And you can see from of course, this is one of the most famous, loved actor in Egypt. You can see the Western, dominance and the perception of what a real decent, inclusive, beautiful, and kind of sustainable city should look like. And of course, this is something that has been completely pushed through the media outlets, which they occupy, of course, the public realm, the public space, the interstice, the in-between, whatever we are thinking about, everything that is related to the and exposed to the majority of people beyond their own individual habitat. You can see here that we are completely taking what could be sounding as completely crazy in the Western world today, and so much, fight against from the civil society, something that it becomes a value, a product to be sold as being the best, approach to design cities. And that means that our practice in reality, which all the time they ask us, hey, Insaf, how you can position yourself? I say we are not really feeling that we are a recognized, practice. We are actually in a form of uncharted practice. This is another aspect of the same publicity. So you can see here a little bit what they mean for public space, because it has been really focusing on that part of publicity. The first one is about security, as you could understand, gated communities where you can be happy, when you can be really protected from the other. So of course the same cliches. So as you can see from this, you can see that we are really on a duality of, a domestic practices and a foreign practices. Are they so different? This is exactly what, we have been completely confronted to it, is this completely, oxymoron or contrast between what has been sold as a cultural patronage for people, in a way to tell them, if you're really looking to have a decent, habitat, and to have a really, be able actually to live as the modern world, this is how it should be. So you can see completely the which perspective we are talking about here. Is everything has been sold and using, actually, in reality, the public, let's say, space, and the public want to shape public opinion and to shape the narratives, to shape the imaginary, to shape the vision, what should be done. And of course, this is a responsibility of most of us, in a way, how these kind of, let's say, message has been completely, accessing the majority of the population, and depicting depicting in reality something that I always, like to say, is here لغة تتحدث لغة أخرى. It means that we are in a context where we have a language that is speaking another language. I couldn't find something similar to express what I want to mean. We have been completely capable during the last 50 years in building up a certain reality, a certain type of thinking about the space where we live to, that is completely disconnected from the reality that we are living in. And we have been shaping the lenses, shaping the elements in a context of no social contracts at all. Because after the different, waves of colonization, the thing that, even though it has been trying to do a lot of communities and a lot of groups, is to be able to shape and to build up a social contract, we are in a context of none. It's not existing at all. And with this, we put another layer, which is the fact that even though that we're talking, and this is, we discussed a lot with Louisa, even when we're talking about public space, public realm, whatever terminologies we are using, it's actually, we are completely in a two different universe. The communication is not happening. The dialogue is not happening. There is a whole context that is completely monopolized, completely controlled by a kind of, entrepreneurial mindset, very, let's say, physical one, that completely downsize all kind of, reality that is amazing that we can find in our region. And this is, of course, provide a lot of reaction, provide a lot of, also waves of rejection from the people, from the population, from those who can feel such a, awkward understanding. So all the projects that we have been doing, even though we have trying as much as we can to be able to make it contextualized, are in fact not, because we are really diving into a completely constructed realm, a completely mirrored reality that is still, until today, we have to work harder and even collectively to be able to reach out what is meaning the question of life in this region, in these territories, in these communities, what is really the social realm for them, by them, shaped by them, and not only to understand it, but also to enable its creation and even to come up, with some kind of solid ground towards it, as it's so fractured. So, and there is also the question of the power to act and decide. And here I brought just an attention for those who might think that there is a kind of very scattered ideas that everything turn around the public space and public realm. Even though we are in this discussion, in a critical, discussion towards this concept and this paradigm, doesn't mean that we don't see the potential to use it as a matter of let's say, speciality, where we can contribute in, reconstructing and be able to reconstruct an Arab mind, an Arab reasoning, a way of how the communities can also take part of it to empower themselves and to be able to establish and to draft a new social contracts within their countries. So the reality, in contrast of what we can see broadcasted in the TV and promoted as being this is how a decent citizens should live in, we have at the same time a reality that is rich, a reality that is full of potential, a reality when, everyone, we can see that the inhabitants, that the population are actually, every day are in action of production of space. They are, and these are photos that some of them we took them while we are there, and some of them are people who are sharing them in the social media, taking also, that feeling that they wanted also to share and that everybody can value, their own actions and their own design. And you can see that most of the things that we have been enabled through them are in reality the core of what we're talking about. There are some social contracts, narratives, elements, and that has been produced by the population, but until today, who wasn't able to put this into frame? It's us. So this is a way that, for me, it's not about us listening to people or them listening to us. It's because it's basically we're trying to be part of the community as a one core, and to be able to define also our mission, to define our purpose, to define that the words that are we using, there is a huge void in terms of science in itself. So to connect the public realm to the Arab world, there are three ingredients that needs to be thought of: people, place, and time. And this is basically what I have been trying to show that there is a temporality that needs to be taken into account. There is also a diversity of people, diversity of elements, diversity of perspective, diversity of culture, diversity of power relationship. And there is a place, or what we call them a spatial dimension, a container that where all these kind of, experiences are taking place into it. I love this quote from, again, all the time from, Munif. There is a beautiful book. It's about, the biography of a city. He said, in many cases, a place is not merely a geographical area, but also the people and the specific time they lived in. Thus, we discover a dialectical relationship between multiple elements that are intertwined and interactive. A place acquires its characteristics through the people who live there, who themselves epitomize the time that was in a specific location. Consequently, people gain features and traits they would not have acquired under other conditions. When they acquired these traits, they influenced the place and time as they were influenced by them, which in turn reflects in giving places and times their characteristics. These places and times, in turn, affect their people to be in this way. And when people are like this, they influence and are influenced by what is around them. And this means that we are really have to reinvent completely new approaches and new tools. Things that we are using today are completely, limited in their impact because they are not really capable to take into account this really temporality and spirit of this region. And this is, again, there is a lot to be taking taking as a work done on the way how we can also depict and understand the past, the way how we can reconstruct our thought. And what are my invitation today, that we need really to reinvent a new science of place completely. We are not really into completely tailor things or using a toolbox or trying to completely say, okay, this is work, this doesn't work, maybe this paradigm or this plurality context. There is all the symptoms we have today. It's a call that we need a real completely revolution in that matter. So of course, when we talk today about these social contracts that needed to be reinvented and needed to be continued and needed to be reconstructed depending on which country we are in, on which geography, of course, we have also to understand that to be able to undergo this, the shaping of these spaces and the shaping of this, tangible and intangible realms, we needed to get also acquiring some knowledge about, what I call engineering of negotiations. We found ourselves not only we are, less architect than negotiator, less architect than, facilitator and people who are, working more into transmission of knowledge, into interpreting, different perceptions between people, even in a very small scale. So, of course, this cultural reflection that I'm talking about, that has been brought, as a legacy of colonialism. It's also based on two dualities, material versus spiritual. Because when we talk about the Arab world, we still have this kind of wave of let's say spirituality and the way how we perceive a space, the way how we perceive, how design should be, or the way how we perceive aesthetic, what we also consider as valid or as a value in itself. All of this are some key, concept that needs to be brought on the table, that we can be able to frame or to understand and to define the subject, the object, and its physical reflection. So to go really quickly within the time that we have, so we are really in a lot of, we need to have a rupture, let's say, between this tendency to go for design to design, marginalization of certain, territories, this orientalization aspect that we all the time use in our literature, in our project, and of course, this kind of urban design that is basically toward markets. It's everything we can see. It's about materiality. It's about typologies. It's about which kind of ideas or paradigms or concept are we applying. There is a lot that is needed in terms of evaluation of these practices that have more, they damage more than they fix. At the same time, I wanted to bring an attention that the time that we talk about public space in particular, we should be responsible of using such wording or such thinking, because it also produces a reality that is completely different, and we do just a kind of application on a reality that might be worth to be seen, to be uncovered, and to be also gained back by the population. So this kind of elements, and this is we can discuss about it during the debate. This is where everybody's trying to say, yes, but things are not working in the Arab world. Yes, we're trying this project, but nothing has been continuous. We are trying to there is no public space, there is no inclusive space, there is none. All of them are kind of, a lot of judgmental or judgments that are backed by a kind of, academic, practice, have been completely freezing, or let's say putting a kind of limitation to what kind of spaces we could have and which kind of processes are also taking place, and they only induce a reactionary process. And this kind of part, it's that there is why there is a kind of mushrooming social pacts. Everything is subdivided, everything is completely mushrooming everywhere, because in reality there is this, we don't acknowledge the fact that what we are doing is taking part of this really power that is already reinforced for decades, and everything that is emerging on our face is in reality a reaction from. So this dependency and self-inflicted Orientalist lenses by the locals and by ourselves, and this uniformization of the think, because everybody agree, nobody is kind of everybody, you can see that they are okay with the terminologies, with the definitions, with everything. It's rarely you can find really a critical thinking about these concepts, or even an effort to find an equivalent to them in the local even languages. It's also have been backed up by a society that is also fractured between elites, that they completely adopt the Western, paradigms, that they are also very good advocates for it, they are defending it, and between what they call themselves the people, or what is popular, what is really the other side of it. And this is completely, for us, it's a lot of limitation if we think about what we are aiming for, of having inclusive, habitat and more, democratic societies. And of course, this is also give us in a way that we need all the time to choose, it's like between the modern and the tradition, between the good and the bad, between the civilized and non-civilized part. So this container, what I call it today, which is the public space, because it has been, even though we didn't want it, it becomes a container in our region and in our territories. Of course, it has been completely mediated, and become a media for to provide a kind of popular discourse about reconstruction, human rights realm. It has been used as a tool to shape cultural values, to shape political influences, to impact the production of knowledge that is completely disconnected from reality. And of course, it has been today pushed further to substitute a kind of a social contract that even the people have not been taking part of. So I just before even I finish, I wanted to drag attention. We don't have enough time to go really deep in every element I have been highlighted, but the aim was that we can induce some kind of curiosity to go and to discover some kind of reading about also the Arab reason. What is really Arab? Arab is not an ethnicity, it's not a language, as has been completely, also framed. It's a diversity background, which kind of finds some kind of similarities in terms of intellectual, cultural, and historical paradigms that basically have been shaped the Arab identity under, at the same time, induced and framed by the Western, colonization that came after. So it's not something that even belonged to us. We are far away today to acknowledge that something could be called, an Arab region, or even the MENA itself, what it means, the MENA region. Nonetheless, a territory that needs to be overseen from the outside and being, subject of different foreign policies, whether in terms of, economic value, or a cultural value, or military one. And here is Muhammad Abdel Jabri, which is one of the key philosopher and thinker, Arab one, who have been known especially by, for a series of 4 books that has been, driven and taken as a base to be able to rethink, how knowledge and reason is constructed in our world, part of this world. And of course, he offers some kind of, pathways in a way how to renew, this intellectual thinking in a collective manner. So, of course, we all understand today that if we wanted really to apply or implement even what we're talking about integrated planning, inclusive design, about shaping public space, etc., 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 nothing could be done without taking also the effort and to include the efforts of reconciliation, of being able to also focus and be also to weapon ourselves with the capacity to do so, because this is also something else, is another discussion about how we are also trained and what kind of resources we can have intellectually to make this exercise. And of course, this is one of the core aspect of Œcumene, that we're trying all the time to inhibit ourselves to project, to design, which we have been trained for, and basically to try to set the stages using design processes to put the conditions through which these elements can arise. And this is, you can understand today, you can understand the dilemma, how we will be able to design something that is not to be physically or quickly shaped, monetized forms, etc., etc. So, of course, I go back now to our debate, is what we are really talking about today. And this is a question, it can cross-cut all disciplines in today's world. We are really in this fluid, plural, complex, multi-crisis realities that is also full of opportunities, something that is, we see that there are things that we can explore, a lot of domain and elements. And why are we doing so? This is a question that needs also that needs to reiterate all the time. Why are we, even ourselves, should be part of it? And of course, how we will do it, how we'll be able to develop tools towards it, what kind of resources is needed, what kind of setting needs to be put stage, and how also we can collaboratively be able to understand that and overcome that as also community of practice. At the end of this presentation, I wanted to highlight some glimpse of a book that I have, which we have several, also quotes from Alan Watts, because this is also the nice things about it, is like we are capable of to find traces that dates 30, 40, 50 years, where we can depict some kind of, wording or expression that mirror our thoughts. So he said, Eastern thought and philosophy present an alternative way of viewing the world, on that has particular relevance as we seek to transcend the limitations imposed by the object orientation in design. And this is, I think, the dilemma that we are facing today, how we can transcend that. And he also, that the philosophy of the Western design, it's actually a very simple reflection of a broader culture, and they are, of course, it's rarely examined. We don't really have that momentum today to be able to go back and to evaluate, to be able to get this, study of this cultural assumptions that we are using for granted, and how the orientation, of course, of our thought and our practice have as a consequences, and to be reliable for. And of course, this is, I love it very much. The last one is that the whole of Western thought is profoundly influenced through by the idea that all the things, all events, all people, all mountain, all stars, all flowers, all grasshoppers, all worms are artifacts. So they have been made. It is therefore natural for a Western child to say to its mother, how was I made? Or on the other hand, that would be quite a natural question for a Chinese child, which we have a lot in common. It's like the East, because of Chinese do not think of nature as something that was made. Instead, they look upon it as something that grows, and the two processes are quite different. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Insaf, for this lecture and for highlighting the importance of the context in regard of public space, understanding, awareness, and design, because we always need to, as you said, to define narratives and applying also a certain sensitivity which is related to the local culture, rather than imitating or replicating models that have been successful in some other contexts. So the fact that public space is so much dominated by the Western oriented culture and approach, it is something that it is erasing those specific and very flavored concepts associated to public space that belong to different countries and cities and territories. I think this is very important to be highlighted anytime we approach a new context, a new territory, a new area, a new community, because communities are so different, not just because of the context, but because each community is expressing a multitude and a plural aspect in terms of needs, desires, and problems, challenges, and there are conflicts, of course, inside every community, and a lot of prejudice, misconceptions, and misinterpretation of each other's thoughts. So public space, as I always say, is not just a physical space, but more than that, public space is a concept. And so that's why with the Public Space Academy, we try to work a lot on public space culture before jump into the design activity. So I think you explained this quite well in your presentation.
Yes, indeed, Louisa. It's the fact that we have this, in my opinion, this mission to take part of this production of these, let's say, in narratives, imaginary. There is a way. I feel like today also it's universal through the different. It's not about being in a kind of a rupture as much as being in an intersection, finding intersections, finding the will and the desire and the tools to kind of envision different, let's say, future imaginary. And I think today that is what is really kind of a missing, because if things are not happening, it's been a lot of years that we're trying also and testing and experimenting the different paradigms. We are also, the children of yesterday, and we know how at the same time the world is so much more connected today, and it's not about deciding which camp you are or which part of the world you are. It's about really trying to find this signs of processes, this part where we can really take part of cultural construct. And today, it's most of the things that we do, especially when it comes out to the physical, the implementation that everybody's looking forward, we find out that everything has been so much reduced and contained, and completely also taking away really probably the momentum of having in reality this urban life or this habitat life that we all ought to or we aim for it. And I wanted to say also that there are also knowledge about it. It's not about that we have to start from zero. It's actually to be able to give more attention to a research that is oriented towards it, that today many people doesn't give attention towards it, and thinking that is not an emergency, where in reality it is. When we talk about the public realm, when we talk about public space in a matter of conflict, of a word that we needed to find new rules of coexistence, and our profession itself should not stay as it was 200 years ago. We have been, of course, trained as being architect, but people doesn't know that I've been also nourished by Habermas, by Heidegger, by Deleuze, by all the things. But I have been also extrapolated from listening or being connected to my own also background that is the one that I needed today, and I have this need, and many of my fellows need to go back to it, and trying to find, some a background from where to restart again, and finding this, middle ground toward it. But people is shaped. Anyway, people will continue shaping their environment. They will continue producing it. They will continue, extrapolating different ways of negotiation and so on. The question is, are we capable of being part of this?
Exactly, because people shape environments, but in return, environments shape people's culture. So it is a process which should find, as you said, new narratives, but also new concepts, I guess, in regard of public space, which especially in the complexity that we are living today, in a world that is so much interconnected, but at the same time also so much divided. So public space has this crucial role to create togetherness, but also to shape conditions for coexistence, as you were saying, also in regard of everyday life, but also like a humanitarian crisis that we are experiencing now, I mean, in several parts of the world, and potentially we will experience also in the future. So it is, public space usually is depicted as the joyful moment in the urban life, to be in a public space, to feel safe, to feel happy, and to meet others, and to enjoy your outdoor living. But there is also a different dimension of public space that it is not so much described or presented to the public, but it is something that we research, as you said, and that we experience anytime we are dealing with some research activity or in-ground, implementation. And there is a dimension, as I said, which is not so much related to happiness, but rather related to sadness sometimes, because the lost opportunities or neglected spaces that could be something useful for the communities, that could perform as agents of transformation, that could actually play the role of activating those human bonds that we desperately need in such fragmented societies in certain parts of the world.
Yeah, it's about being on the ground, being to the reality, because the recreational, for example, projection of the public space, it's made up through this typology that has been induced, by different doctrines of how spaces are. And this comes out as a legacy as well. So the fact to be able to say, hey, look, today it's time that we unlearn and to kind of go back and re-see the reality where we live on. And of course, I think this is very crucial to go towards, definitions with an S of the public space, because we can't contain one in one. And this is, I think, one of the limitations in itself. And of course, going towards a kind of a more cultural processes as a tool, to build these terminology, these signs as the matter of fact. But I totally agree with you, because you're thinking about, from your part, Luisa, about, the public space, how people conceive it, especially when it's a matter of policies, matter of projects. This is exactly another matter we didn't discuss, but this is also the one core, challenge we are facing, because in the matter of the terminology of project, everything becomes, materialized and completely let's say, bias and completely, a huge room for all kind of, let's say, the best wording would be projections, of all kind of folkloric concepts. We are completely ejected then from the dialogue or the discussion. I wish that today we would be able, and I think it's part of the process to build a new paradigm, that we are, and there are things happening, because 10 years ago we didn't talk about this. Today we are talking about it. Today we are also having the will and having this desire and having even the sense of that we need a new reasoning, new reason, new way of thinking, going back, you see. And this is kind of, I think it's very important momentum in a way that we have to combine also research to action, is a way that we cannot today dissociate both. We cannot dissociate the theory, we don't dissociate it from action. It's a way that we need to bridge both. And this is where we all stand here today towards this this goal and this objective.
Yes, a lot of work to do, but we're ready, for this challenge.
Yes.
Okay, so
Exactly.
I would like to invite Egle and Via to the stage, so that we have their feedback also on participants of this lecture, and if you have collected any of the questions from the audience.
Yeah, of course. First of all, of course, thank you, Insaf, for the lecture. It was very rich in content and in impressions. I have to say that I'm very happy that the focus today on the MENA region has been also interesting for our learners, because we can also see that in the attendance. We have quite a few participants today from the MENA region, but also from Africa and different places in Europe. Of course, no doubt other places that just haven't made themselves shown in the chat. So we have around 40 participants I see on the different platforms with us. So I think that should be good for a little discussion. So yes, everybody, please feel free to write your questions in the chat. And while the chat is warming up, maybe I could start with my own question, which is, which I was thinking about while listening to your presentation, because I do think this topic of globalization and the homogenization of spaces is very crucial. And I, as an architect and urban designer, think about what is my role in this as well, at the age of companies that work across countries and across regions. And we do see this southeastern turn, but I think it's more in theory maybe that we see it in some domains like urban planning and such. But I was wondering, how do we not perpetuate this in practice? And maybe you could share some tools or principles or methods that you implement in your own practice, how to avoid maybe losing sight of the local heritage and values, and how to be respectful of these local narratives.
Thank you, Diej. So to answer your question, for us was one of the key is the pluridisciplinarity and also being able, to learn. Actually, we adapted some tools that are used in personal development, in team building, in moderation, in like active listening, the way how we also used scientific tool of reviewing, the literature that we read or the tools. So the first thing we do all the time in the project, even myself, even I'm Tunisian and working in Tunisia, even within the same country, you can find the same lens, way of also, how we look to reality and perceive it. And I think the whole challenge is from the beginning to take this as a value and as a step before starting your project, even it has been required or not. In all the work we do as well, we are those who have been embracing, collaborative, approach. That means that the project doesn't exist within the participation are having all the different actors around the table. This is require a lot of training and restrictions, because we have been all the time trained when we have been as a professional first, or even learning in schools of architecture or planning, to project. We are the expert, we are the ones who have, these are the tools that should work, and this is how you should make it. And in fact, at the end, to be able to do that, you need to unlearn, to go through the process of having unlearning processes all the time, wherever you are. And pluridisciplinarity is one of the key. It's not as something that is a joy. It means that there is a lot of requirement needed to manage these different opinions, different prejudice, to learn also to be trained on how you conduct a conversation, how you will be able also to learn critical thinking methods. So I would go to critical thinking method. I think is so important at first, if somebody wants to acquire it, because this will allow you to how to choose the information, being very aware about your judgment, being aware of the way how to have all the time this critical mindset. And of course, in the implementation of project with partners and so on, we request these parts to be in, we put them within our activities. It's something that is so important and so clear. That's why all the project we do, we have also a lot of cultural, actors within that. There is this all the time, this need to produce, to project, to test, to experiment using different tools of media, for instance, or art. And this is, for me, it's like one of the kind of a recipe. You need to have these ingredients in every project, whatever the scale is and whatever the nature is. And this allows us that during the whole process, there is a self-evaluation and self-reflection, but the grid that we are using are not like a KPIs, we have values, we have things that needs to be put on the table. We have to train and to prerequisite, let's say, of empathy, capacity of being open to others. And this is, we take them completely from those who work in engineering for development. So you do humanitarian field, those who work in community development, we have been actually borrowing all their tools, contextualize them to be able, to become ourselves negotiators, some kind of, of actors, using architecture, design, and planning. Something else just to finalize that, every action we do at the same time has a part of activism in it in the Arab world or in Africa. That cannot be, for the moment, we are not at the level to say, hey, look, now everything is established and now it's time to really start producing. We are all the time in this kind of, trying to put on the table these practices.
Great, thank you. I think this is a wonderful to-do list for our fellow practitioners, and I really hope that this inspires, and of course your practice and your projects as well, that inspires our listeners today for their own projects and their own practice. I will give the floor to Egle. I think that you have prepared questions from the listeners.
We have a question from the audience regarding the openness of societies. So Viviane Saade is asking, don't you think that because of the global awareness in many fields, services designs, people are evolving and they find themselves in need of all these different techniques and these new services and even foreign spaces, maybe because the world is becoming more open? Could it be the case?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this is exactly the point when I said to find intersection, but at the same time, I would answer easily if I was putting the hat of a normal, consumer or human user, all right? I would see it differently. I would be completely happy with it. I would be not, in a position to say, hey, that's great. It's something nice to have these buildings and these places and so on. Why not? This is also a question which we ask. But the other part, we said, no, we are not actually normal users. We are people who have this responsibility to at least, analyze and filtrate and to be able to see if this has some kind of consequences or not. That's why there is a huge attachment today to the subject of heritage or let's say a cultural identity and the subject coming through. Why? Because it's only symptoms of some kind of requirement to hold on a bit and give some time to the locals to produce also their own knowledge. It's not about just not to be in a position to have that, but I will position that as being consumer and a producer. The only element we do that we also have, if you wanted to create a real public realm and a real society, and strong one, resilient one, that can have a future, you need also that they are capable of producing. And among this production is the production of knowledge and the production of their own habitat and rules and social contracts without so much interference. They can get inspired, of course, of the best practices, best things, whatsoever, but it should not be the only one rule for it.
Yes, I agree. We are not only users, but also producers, creators of public life. And is it that the public space is actually the gate, the stage, the school where we might create these new visions and maybe learn new practices?
Exactly.
Thank you, Insaf. This is very, very important and really crucial, also very much aligned with our Public Space Academy. Yes, very, very important. I hope you will join us in the future, since we are developing new courses for our online program of the Public Space Academy. And of course, I would like to remind that we are now organizing 2 in-person workshops, one in New York City on the 28th of April. And you can register to the workshop, which is part of a 3-day event at Pratt Institute. The name of the event is Public Space Challenges, and from theory to practice to policy. And you can find information on our LinkedIn page of the Public Space Academy. So the event is open to the public, but registration is required. And there is a second workshop that we are now organizing in Bologna, June, 28th of June, and it is part of the international conference, Past, Present, and Future of Public Space, which is promoted by City Space Architecture. So we have online and offline opportunities to meet and discuss about public space. And we have also invited Insaf to join our upcoming mentorship program that we will announce very soon with some other early career and senior public space experts that will guide learners into the complexity of public space culture. So I don't know if you want to say anything else, Insaf, before we close this lecture.
Yes, I would love to thank all the team. Thank you, Louisa. I'm very happy. It's been a while. We are in contact. I think it's also everybody has been valuing the Journal of Public Space, because this is also something that has been cherished, and really it was of good use during the last years. I wanted also to just encourage people to follow the work of City Space Architecture. We wanted also to say that there will be a lot to come in the future, and to engage everyone to experiment, to keep learning, to keep discovering, and especially to work collectively. I think this is how we will be able to also reinforce our actions, and we have, like you said, a lot to do.
Yes, a lot to do. But we can do this together, and because we have enough enthusiasm and expertise also through this global community that is part of City Space Architecture, and that we are engaging also through the Public Space Academy to raise awareness on public space and to empower civic leaders to put public space as a priority in their urban agendas. So, I mean, the effort is big, the ambition is huge, I understand, but this is our purpose, and this is what we are trying to achieve. So, thank you again, Insaf. Thank you, Via and Egle. I wait for the next keynote lecture in May that we will announce soon. And meanwhile, I just want to say see you soon to the next keynote lecture, and also get in touch if you have any questions regarding the Public Space Academy, our online courses and our workshops. We will be happy to give you more details. So
thank you.
See you next time.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.